To mix things up a little, we are in the car already, and currently we find ourselves on the highway in the Jeep Avenger. My name is Peter and I'm going to talk you around this car in this video. Tell you all about what it is and certainly what it isn't. It is of course a Stellantis product, so it is on a very familiar platform. In an earlier video we drove the Fiat E600, that is the same platform, the Alfa Junior, the Opel Mokka, the Peugeot 2008, and I'm sure there's a few more. All based on the same architecture, and in my opinion that is not a bad thing, because if you are a big car umbrella company like Stellantis, you have to build scalable cars, and you do that by reusing the parts that you already have. So in here there is a lot of recognizable Stellantis hardware, like the steering wheel, the infotainment system, the buttons, the storage bin, the gear tunnel, and all those things are all very familiar. Not an issue as far as I'm concerned, because the outside is very recognizable Jeep, and that is also the main story here, is that obviously Stellantis tries to have similar underpinnings but give all the brands under its umbrella its own character and appeal. And on the one hand you can say, yeah, that's nonsense, just putting a different body on a car does not make it a fundamentally different car, which is true. On the other hand, it is also realistically, especially with these smaller versions of these cars, that you just have to do it that way. And I still think that the brands under the Stellantis umbrella do a reasonable job in differentiating themselves that way. Because an Alfa Romeo Junior is a very different car than this Jeep Avenger, which is again a very different car than the Fiat E600 that we drove. Obviously I got to give you a quick tour of the cockpit here of this Jeep Avenger. All very recognizable Stellantis hardware, of course. I don't think that's an issue. If you have a lot of stuff to use and reuse, why not? That saves money in the end, and if you want to produce cars at scale, that is what you're going to have to do. So it's all buttons in here, nothing touchy swipey, so that is excellent. That just works better. Glad to see that they still do it this way. That especially goes for the Klima unit, where you can still press a button for fan speed up and down, temperature up and down. Very nice, that's how you want it. We got normal buttons for your mirror control and your windows here on the left where you want them, so that is good too. And the steering wheel is also all buttons. Great. Systems and radio and volume and such on the right, cruise control on the left. Perfect, not too busy, and also nothing you'll accidentally press, so that is great. Behind the steering wheel, normal traditional stalks for your lights, indicators and wipers, and we got some flippers for your paddle shifting. There is a manual option for the dual clutch transmission that you will never use, because why would you? The transmission is fine, doesn't really feel like a dual clutch, to be honest. Feels more like a traditional automatic, but it's smooth enough, and I don't see any reason why you would want to change gear yourself. Through the steering wheel, a full-size display, so not like in the Fiat E600s that we drove, a display with some lights on the side. This is just a full width display for your navigation, your range, your eco power, where you are with your gas pedal. So quite versatile, and also nice that it's a full-size display, not some kind of blocked in little screen. We got another screen in the middle, obviously your central infotainment system, which we also are very familiar with. I personally don't mind the system at all. It's not the fastest or most graphically advanced system in the world, but it works just fine. It does everything you want it to do. It's fast enough, it has enough information on it. Some things are not entirely logical, like you still have to swipe for your heated seats, for example. But, small things there. Overall, I think it works just fine. And you got some shortcut buttons here for your home screen and your ADAS systems, which is nice, because obviously the ADAS systems you have to do every time you start the car. Personally, I like to have the speed warnings off and the lane departure warning off. So, that's something I have to do every single time, so it's nice that there's a dedicated button for that. Then we got some manual ventilation controls, also fine above the manual Klima unit. Like I said in the E600 video too, that is the way you want it, because you can feel your way around and you know when you press the button. It's just easier that way. You don't have to, first of all, look for a capacitive button and then check again if your action has registered. It's just too much. This you can do without looking. In between, there is this sort of broad shelf. Very convenient to use and just handy, because there's always like some stuff going on in the car that you just want to put away quickly, or a parking ticket. You can just chuck it all in there. It's very usable space for when you don't want to use the glove box. We got our drive select buttons here in the middle, above a big bin with sort of an iPad folio style cover. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but it is very functional, so that's great. And it's also something you can replace when this car has seen a few years and miles and this sort of starts to wear out. So that's a nice solution actually, because you can change it for, I don't know, 20, 30 euro. And then all is well and new again. Underneath we have a deep bin with some wireless charging, 12-volt socket, USBs, and just general, sunglasses, cables, garage clickers, and so on. And then the traditional Stellantis tunnel with the parking brake and the driving modes. Some cup holders and an armrest with a little bin in here, big enough for a small water bottle. The seats are comfortable, not very supportive. You slide out of them quite easily if you go around a corner a bit too enthusiastically, but overall it's quite okay actually. And they're nice and soft, adjustable electrically for the driver and also with a massage function. You're not going to buy it for the massage function, I suppose, but it's okay to have it, I guess. This car also has the panoramic roof, which is great for a bit of extra light, especially because this is all very black with black and even more black, despite the light roof lining. Overall, it's a good place to be. Good overview out actually over the hood, so that's nice. And also because it's not a very large car with the side mirrors, I can easily see behind as well. The material choices are a bit what you expect. On the other hand, it's a bit hard here and there. Like lower down in the car, I don't mind that much, but the stuff you touch on a daily basis, sometimes it's a bit questionable. Luckily, the touch points, like for your elbow, the steering wheel, the other elbow, that's all fine. So sitting here, we are currently driving the hybrid version. Earlier last year, we drove the full electric version. This is the hybrid, and there's also a manual gearbox petrol version only available. So it's quite nice that you have a lot to pick within this model already. Hybrid, it is a mild hybrid system, so 48-volt starter generator that is helping the 1.2 turbo petrol engine in the front a little bit to get going. So there's no plugs to bother with, there's no charging, and there's no real electric range. You have a 0.9 kilowatt hour battery, and that gives you less than a kilometer of actual electric range. So forget about that. You have to really think, like parking, for example, will be done electrically. But you're not really going to drive this in electric in any way, shape or form. You notice it mainly when you're pulling away at a traffic light, for example, or when you're slowing down in a city, then the dials turn blue, and that shows you're doing a little bit of pure electric driving, but that is very minimal. Currently here on the highway we're doing 117. I wouldn't say it feels out of place here on the highway, but with a little over 100 horsepower, it's certainly not its natural habitat. There's just not enough power for any serious acceleration. If I floor it now at 115, 18, 25, 7, 30, 6, 43, 40, 150. So it's not a fast car in any way, shape or form. You can forget about that. It's not a highway stormer. But it is quite comfortable in here, I have to say. The seats are comfortable, good view out. I got a JBL audio system in this version. It's all very civilized and very nice. So you can certainly do some actual distance in this car, which you can, because there's no battery range anxiety to take into consideration. You can just fill this up at any petrol station and keep driving. So you could do like weekends away in this car if you want to. Behind myself there is about this much space still left in my normal driving position, so you're not going to make adults very happy sitting in the back. It certainly is possible. I fit behind myself if I move my driver's seat slightly forward, but I'll be touching the seat with my knees, and it's not certainly a place where you want to be for longer periods of time. But for a short journey, obviously no problem. But in real life, you're just going to put kids in the back, and that is it. The boot space with 300-ish liters is also more than adequate for its designated use case, which is in and around town, taking kids places, maybe a weekend away, like I said, with a small kid and part of the family. That's all certainly possible, but again, you're not going to take this car on a ski holiday with your skis in the back. Although I'm sure, technically speaking, people in the comments, it's all possible, but realistically, that's not what you're going to use this car for. Here in the back of the Jeep Avenger, we can actually be pretty conclusive that this is not a place for adults. You can see that I, technically speaking, fit behind myself, but that is about it. And even my kids, 8 and 11, are like borderline as far as space goes. But for smaller kids, no issue. And certainly as an adult, I can sit here for a shorter journey. No issues whatsoever, because the back of the seats are soft and I have a lot of space for my feet down there. So as far as that goes, it's fine. But yeah, basically kids only. It's pretty featureless back here. There's only one USB, no cup holders or anything else going on. So, you know, it is what it is. And also the materials get slightly more questionable even than in the front. There is a few driving modes available. First of all, you can put it into manual, and then you can use the flippers behind the steering wheel to change gear with the double clutch gearbox, which you'll never do. Because why would you? There's not enough power to really justify flipping through gears yourself. And it's just, you know, the automatic is fine. It's nothing shockingly good or anything, but it's good enough. On top of that, you can select sport mode or eco mode or even snow and mud and sand mode. And you're never going to touch those either, because certainly this might be a Jeep in the pure sense of the word, that it has a Jeep badge, but this is not an off-road car. You're not going to do any terrain riding with this. First of all, it doesn't have the tires for it. It's only front wheel drive. No, you're just not going to do that. I'm not really sure why Jeep puts it in there. I suppose for that Jeep feeling, but realistically that you're never going to use that either. That said, the car does have quite a bit of ground clearance, so you know, maybe if you put some proper tires on it and don't go too crazy, you could do some off-roading, but realistically speaking, no. You're just going to put it in normal and drive normal. And as far as that goes, this car is just fine. Like I said, here on the highway, it doesn't really have enough power to go fast or do overtakes or anything, but it's perfectly reasonable. In and around town, you notice that the hybrid system gives you that little bit extra push, which is nice. So that helps you maneuver through traffic quite easily. I have to say the gearbox is not the fastest thing in the world. It does take a while to respond every once in a while, so you're gonna have to anticipate working with that a little bit. It's certainly not as zippy as the electric version, where of course you have that instant acceleration and torque. So if that's what you're after, you're better off with the electric version. But if you want that range, then this would be a good option. There's not that much to complain about in this car. It's all fine and nothing really stands out as fantastic or terrible. There is some questionable material choices, like the hardware here at the door especially is super hard plastic, so that's kind of nasty. I don't really mind it lower down in the car, but yeah, on these kind of spots where you know, sometimes put your elbow, it's not ideal. This version though, like I said, with JBL speakers, panoramic roof, quite comfortable seats. It's nice and complete, and actually quite pricey therefore as well, obviously, but it's a nice car overall to be in if you get rid of those plastics a little bit. After a whole week with this Jeep Avenger, is this the one to get? I think in many ways, yes, why not? If you want to get started with Jeep as a brand, if you like that brand philosophy and those ideas behind the brand, then this is a great entryway into the product lineup. It's also quite nice that there's a lot to choose within this model. You have the pure petrol, you have this hybrid version, and you have the pure electric one. For me personally, if this was my secondary vehicle, I would go for the pure electric version, because that is nice, has enough range for your daily driving, your daily commuting, and everything around, and still has the same styling. If this is your primary vehicle, I would go for this hybrid, because I think it's a nice combination between a little bit of economic driving and a little bit of extra options in terms of that electric powertrain, but still have enough range for a weekend away or a short road trip. Because you certainly can do that. There is enough space in the back for a small family and enough luggage, so why not? All round, I think it is a nice car, despite the fact that it is a very familiar platform within the Stellantis group. I think Jeep gives it a nice bit of own character, despite sharing all those components. That's all I got for you in this video. Thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. A sub to the channel is always appreciated, of course, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!